The sound of paper tearing echoed through my son's living room like a thunderclap. My daughter-in-law Melissa stood there, perfectly manicured fingers gripping the fragments of my wedding photo. The last one where Richard and I were together before cancer took him. Her eyes locked with mine, lips curled into a smirk as she dropped the pieces onto the hardwood floor. "You won't be needing these anymore, Eleanor. This house belongs to Jason and me now." She actually laughed, then right in my face as my 67-year-old hands trembled. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't speak. 46 years of marriage in that frame now scattered at my feet like worthless confetti. My own son just stood there silent as a statue, not even looking at me. What I didn't tell them that day, what I couldn't say through my tears, was that I had already visited Richard's lawyer the previous afternoon. The real will, the one Richard and I had prepared together during his final days, was safely locked away where neither of them could touch it. I still remember how my hands shook as I gathered those torn pieces from the floor. The beautiful silver frame, a 20th anniversary gift from Richard, now had a crack running through the glass, jagged like the pain in my chest. I wanted to scream, to fight back, but all I could manage was to carefully collect each fragment, feeling Melissa's eyes burning into my back. "Don't bother cleaning up," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "The cleaning service starts tomorrow. We're redecorating everything anyway." I looked up at my son, Jason, silently, pleading with him to say something, anything. His eyes flickered to mine for just a moment before darting away. In that brief second, I saw something I never thought I'd see in my own child's eyes. Shame mixed with greed. It was then I knew with absolute certainty that the son I raised was gone, replaced by a stranger who had chosen money over his own mother. I want you to understand that I never thought my life would come to this. At my age, you expect certain things: the comfort of family, the security of the home you've built, the respect you've earned after decades of putting others first. You never imagined that your twilight years will be spent fighting your own flesh and blood for your dignity. But that's exactly where I found myself at 67, suddenly treated like an unwelcome guest in the home I had shared with Richard for over 4 decades. A home where we had raised our son, celebrated countless Christmases, weathered storms, both literal and figurative. The same home where Richard had taken his last breath just 3 months earlier, his hand in mine as he made me promise to take care of our boy. If only he could see what that boy had become. You know, Richard and I were high school sweethearts. We met in 1972 during senior year. He was the quiet, thoughtful boy who tutored me in algebra, and I was the chatty cheerleader who couldn't understand why letters belonged in math. Our first date was at Millie's Diner on the edge of town in Burlington, Vermont, a place that still exists, though it's called something else now. I ordered a chocolate mold and spilled it all over his new shirt. Instead of getting upset, he laughed and said, "Well, I guess you've left your mark on me already." Little did we know how true those words would be. We married young, just 20 years old, in a small ceremony at my parents' backyard. No fancy venue, no expensive dress, just 2 kids crazy about each other with $50 in savings and dreams as vast as the Vermont sky. We moved to Massachusetts after college, both of us landing teaching jobs, Richard in high school science, me in elementary education. We saved every penny, working summer jobs, taking on tutoring, anything to build our future. It took 7 years of sacrifice, but in 1979, we put a down payment on that house on Maple Street, $142,500. It cost a fortune to us then. I can still smell that fresh paint as we walked through the empty rooms, planning where everything would go. "This is our forever home," Richard had whispered, holding me close in what would become our living room. "We'll grow old here together, Eleanor." We were so young then, barely 27, with no idea of the journey ahead. Jason came along 2 years later, our miracle baby, after the doctor had told us children might not be possible. The day he was born was the only time I ever saw Richard cry. Standing there in the hospital room, this tiny bundle in his arms, tears streaming down his face as he promised our son the world. Richard worked his way up to principal over the years, and I eventually became head of the elementary school English department. We weren't wealthy by any means, but we were comfortable. We put money away each month for Jason's college fund, for retirement, for the just-in-case moments life inevitably throws your way. Richard was meticulous about our finances. Every Sunday night, he'd sit at the kitchen table with his ledger, making sure every dollar was accounted for. "We need to be smart, Ellie," he'd say. "No one else will look after our future." I used to tease him about being so careful, but now I thank God for his foresight. If Richard hadn't been so diligent, so forward-thinking, I don't know where I'd be today, probably on the street. If Melissa had her way, Jason was always a good boy, sensitive, intelligent, perhaps a bit too eager to please. He excelled in school, made the honor roll every semester, captained the debate team. We were so proud of him when he got accepted to Boston University on a partial scholarship in 1999. His father and I made up the difference. Of course, $1.15 a year. We contributed money we'd set aside specifically for his education. He studied business administration, and we supported every ambition he had when he wanted to spend a semester abroad in London. We found the extra $8,000 even though it meant postponing the kitchen renovation we'd been saving for his future comes first. Richard had insisted, and I agreed without hesitation. What parent wouldn't sacrifice for their child? What parent wouldn't give everything to see their child succeed? But sometimes I wonder now, did we give too much? Did we make it too easy for him to take and take and take without understanding the costs? It was during his final year of college that Jason met Melissa. She was studying marketing with dreams of working for a big advertising agency. I remember the first time he brought her home for Thanksgiving in 2002. She was beautiful. No denying that. Tall and slender with perfectly highlighted hair and clothes that looked straight out of a magazine. She brought an expensive bottle of wine and complimented everything from my cooking to my home decor. Yet something felt rehearsed. There was a calculation behind her smile, a sharpness in her eyes when she thought no one was looking. Richard sensed it, too. "She's got ambition, that one," he murmured later that night as we were getting ready for bed. "Let's just hope she sees Jason for who he is, not what he might give her." I dismissed his concerns then. "You were just being an overprotective father," I told him, patting his cheek affectionately. "No one will ever be good enough for your son." How I wish I'd paid more attention to his instincts. They dated for 3 years before getting engaged. During that time, Melissa transformed from the polite, somewhat reserved young woman we'd first met into someone increasingly comfortable in our home, our lives. She had opinions about everything: how we should renovate the house, where we should invest our savings, even suggesting Richard consider early retirement so they could help us manage things. I noticed how Jason began to echo her thoughts almost word for word sometimes. The son who once called me every Sunday without fail now seemed to check in only when Melissa prompted him to, his words sounding like lines from a script she'd prepared. The wedding was lavish, far beyond what we'd budgeted for. When I gently suggested scaling back, Melissa looked at me with such disdain. "This is our special day, Eleanor," she said, emphasizing my name like it was something distasteful. "Don't you want your only son to have the best?" She made me feel small, selfish, as if wanting to stay within our means somehow meant I didn't love my son enough. In the end, Richard and I contributed $35,000, nearly our entire savings, for that year. After the wedding, things changed even more rapidly. Jason and Melissa moved to Chicago for her job at a prestigious marketing firm. Our calls became less and less frequent, their visits home rare and always rushed. When they did come, Melissa would spend hours on her phone, sighing dramatically at our slow internet connection, making comments about how quaint and outdated our home was. I tried so hard to connect with her, to build a relationship. I learned her favorite foods, remembered details about her work projects, always asked about her parents in Connecticut, but nothing seemed to bridge the gap. To her, I was just the old-fashioned mother-in-law, an obstacle rather than family. Then, in 2019, everything changed again. Richard was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, stage 4, terminal. The doctors gave him 6 months to a year. He fought for exactly 11 months and 13 days. Those final months were both beautiful and terrible. Beautiful because Richard and I treasured every moment, every conversation, every touch like never before. Terrible because watching the love of your life slowly slip away is a kind of torture I wouldn't wish on anyone. Jason came home when we first got the diagnosis, stayed for a week, then returned to Chicago. He called regularly at first, but as the months went on, the calls became less frequent. "He's busy with work," Richard would say, making excuses. I knew he didn't believe. It's hard for him to see me like this, but a parent knows their child, and I knew there was more to it. I finally understood what was happening when I overheard a phone conversation between Jason and Melissa. 3 months into Richard's illness, I hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but as I approached the guest bedroom with fresh towels, I heard my son's voice low and tense. "Yes, I know, Mel. Dad's updating his will tomorrow. No, I don't know the details yet. Yes, of course I care about the house, but I can't just ask him right now." My heart dropped to my stomach. While we were counting Richard's remaining days, they were counting his assets. I never told Richard what I heard. He had enough burdens without adding the weight of our son's betrayal. Instead, I began paying closer attention, noticing how Jason would bring up financial matters when he thought Richard was having a good day. "Have you thought about what Mom will do with the house after you know, or do you think it makes sense for Mom to manage the investments alone?" Little comments, subtle suggestions, and every time he visited, Melissa would find ways to mention how perfect the house would be for them, how they'd been thinking of moving back east, how they could take care of me if I found the house too much to handle on my own. I played dumb, nodded along, all while my stomach twisted into knots. Richard noticed, too, though we spoke of it only once. It was late one of those nights when pain kept him awake. He reached for my hand in the darkness and whispered, "Promise me you'll protect yourself, Ellie. Even from Jason, if you